how I got hired. As many job seekers, I found myself applying to countless jobs without landing any job offers. Feeling disappointed and hopeless, I told myself, I know God has good plans for us, and what I wanted was good. Why weren't those coming together? One day, in that hopelessness, I prayed to God, asking for guidance. I didn't know what else to do. I was doing all you were supposed to do while looking for a job. I decided to be very specific and detailed on what I wanted. I had written in a white paper 3 things my ideal job would have. It would be an international company, would be a rotational program in business and sales, and it would be a company that values ethics in business. I wanted to learn from the best in a tech company. But most importantly, I wanted to learn to do business the right way. The win-win deals. Those are the challenges that I wanted to learn from. In that prayer, asking for guidance, I shared my ideal job list to God and thought, I know that what you want is good, and surrender it to His will. I'm going to pause here because if you are a Christian believer, you are following right along. But if you are not, you might have questions such as, what does surrendering your will to God's will mean? What if I do not believe in God? Do I stop watching your video? I hope not. I hope that you can actually get more visibility into what that means as I share more about this example in the future examples. And just to give you maybe a little glimpse into what that looked like for me and what I kind of gotten from that is surrendering your will to God's will means you are aligning your desires and your own planned pathways to God's planned pathways for you because you're trusting God to lead every step of the way. Now, even as you do not see that paved way, you are taking those steps and being obedient. Now, I'm not a theologian, and if you would like to learn more about what is God's will and how you find out, I encourage you to further explore and seek. What I will tell you is this: surrendering to God's will is an intentional active action. I hope that the more I share about this example, you can kind of see in this example and in the following ones, how is it that it played out into my career journey? Because I had to do that several times. But in this example, I'll show you a little bit more about that. So let's go back to it. God's plan did not come to me so clear back then because I had not seen or experienced and been in tune to the things I will be sharing with you. All I knew at that time is that He had good plans. So then, when I went back to job searching, a thought came to mind to search for upcoming conferences. I was not getting anywhere sending my resumes. I wasn't getting anywhere with the traditional methods. I needed to meet and connect with people. And of course, I'm just a graduate. I don't have a network yet. I don't have experience. How do I do that? So let's look at conferences. I started exploring conferences. And then I realized I couldn't afford the travel expenses. I couldn't afford going to all these conferences. Then there was an engineering one coming up for students. And I prayed for it to be near me because I couldn't afford any other ones. And I wasn't getting anywhere in the other methods. When I opened the page and I seen where it was, yes, that conference was only an hour and a half train ride away from where I was. It was something I could afford. It was something I could attend. And that is how this journey begins. That conference was well attended by major companies, all with the focus to hire engineers. I was looking for a sales engineer role, but I did not know that role then. I didn't know that's exactly what I was looking for. All I know is I wanted to work at an international company where I would help businesses achieve their business goals through an awesome technology portfolio, learning from the best in the industry, the right way. That is what I wanted to do. During the conference, I networked with several companies, and many of my conversations led to interviews, and many eventually got cut short due to not meeting qualifications. I was not qualified. Maybe several of you have encountered this either through other people's expectations or our own sabotaging thoughts that tell us we are not good enough. The truth is, we are good enough. And we allow these lies to take over us and paralyze us. We allow those thoughts to confuse us and keep us in fear. That needs to stop. Wherever that is coming from, whether that's from you or somewhere else, it needs to stop. We have been intentionally created with purpose and are empowered to walk into that purpose, not to walk with fear. We're empowered to walk in boldness. So, disappointed, I prayed and believed that if I were to secure a role, it would be with the truth and going about it the right way. On the last day of the conference, I arrived early before the doors opened and sat next to a gentleman who was also waiting. He had an interview scheduled for a chemical engineering position. As we talked, he enthusiastically shared his internship experience with me. His face was glowing with excitement. Inspired by his passion, I encouraged him to present himself in the same way that he spoke to me to the person that's going to be interviewing him. He then asked me, as a computer engineer, haven't you spoken to Intel? I said I have not. Intel has really long lines, and considering it is the last day of the conference, they most likely have all their openings filled, and I did not think I had a chance with them. He challenged my thinking and said, when else will you have the opportunity to speak to someone from Intel for a job? He said, if they are interested in you, they'll make the time. I never thought this way. That didn't even cross my mind. I thought that is pretty bold thinking. I don't think that's going to happen, but I should at least try. When the doors opened, I went straight to Intel booth, made the line, and told them exactly what I was looking for. The recruiter listened and asked if I had heard of their sales and marketing rotational program. I had not. She then told me their recruiter wasn't available at that moment, but asked if I could return later. Without hesitation, I said, yes, I will be here. When I returned to the Intel booth, the recruiter introduced me to the director of Intel Sales and Marketing Rotational Program. We briefly chatted, and then he said, I do not have interview booths available anymore. They're all booked. That is what I thought, right? As when he's telling me this. Yet, he said, could we meet this afternoon at one of the open tables right outside the conference area? Remember the gentleman I met early in the day? He said this, if they are interested in you, they will make the time. Well, that's what was happening. I said, yes, let's meet outside the conference area. When I came back and we met at the conference area, we had a great conversation about the rotational program. The director was telling me how he had completed his hiring for the program and attended the conference solely to fulfill his commitment. He had committed to being present at that conference, and that's why he went. So I'm going to pause here. He told me he had completed his hiring for the program and attended the conference solely to fulfill his commitments. I didn't realize it then, but that act speaks volumes of him in the company he works for. He told me he knows I'm looking for a job now. The program will begin in the summer. Then he asked, would you be interested in interviewing with my team for the program? I said, yes. Of course I will be interested, yes. I could hardly believe I was having the opportunity to interview with Intel for everything that was in the list for my ideal job. I prayed and said, God, if this is your will, make it undoubtedly clear to me. This is you opening this path by making the interview process easy for me. Yep. I was not asking for easier. I wasn't asking for a bit lighter. Nope. I was asking for clearly, undoubtedly easy. And that's how I will know it's you. The interviews begin. The first person I was scheduled to interview with was a computer engineering graduate who studied abroad in Taiwan and had worked at Intel for 15 plus years. What a resume, right? What a track record. I'm a computer engineer who studied abroad and thought he is going to test me on my technical skills and potentially my Mandarin skills. He jumped on the call with high energy. During the interview, I thought, wow, he has such a high energy. How will I ever be able to measure up to this high energy after working for 15 plus years in the same company? Right at the beginning of our conversation, he enthusiastically asked me where I was from. It turns out we grew up in the same state. He left because it was too cold for him. It was great interviewing with him. We both had studied the same major, studied abroad, and grew up in the same state. And now I was interviewing with him for the same program he was part of years ago. We had a great conversation. Several years later, he left Intel. I reached out to him to share with him. He was a great part of my story at Intel. And as a leader, wherever he may go, to continue to be in tune to God's will and plan for him, and how God wants to use him to bless others as he was a blessing to me in my professional career. Okay, that was the first interview. Then the other interviewer was a business major from a state I had not then knew much about, which later became my home for 3 years. I was a little less worried because I thought we would be focusing on business. He's a business major. We're going to talk mostly business. Of course not. Of course, what was I thinking? I'm interviewing for a tech company. That's not going to be the case. He asked me technical questions and I was not expecting it. I was caught off guard by my own assumptions. He had also been at Intel for many years and had been part of the rotational program as well. We had a great conversation as he provided a whole different perspective of experience and outlook from the program and his experience. Then the next day, which was on a Friday, late afternoon, I got a call from the director of the program, whom I met at the conference, asking me, how do you think the interview went? Many thoughts came to mind. One was, he is calling me late afternoon. This can't be good, right? My default, like supporting thoughts. I answered honestly, sharing thoughts of the conversations and how I believed it went. He told me he had intended for me to interview with one more person, but they were abroad and might not be available. Then came the moment I did not expect. He said, I'm ready to extend you an offer. Is that something you'd be interested in? Okay, calm down, right? Bring it together. I stayed calm and replied, yes, that is something I would be interested in. And let me share with you what was happening afterwards. At that time, I was speaking from my car as I had just pulled over to the driveway. Once we hung up, right, when I calmly told him, yes, that is something I would be interested in, I got out of my car, right? We were finished with the call. I get out of my car and jump and scream out of excitement. My whole neighborhood could hear me. I told myself I would not tell anyone until the offer letter is confirmed. Signed, notarized, stamped, I'm not sure. I couldn't believe it. Once it was confirmed, I was still skeptical and thought, I will not believe it till I am in the office, working a few weeks in. For some reason, I thought something was going to change, something was going to make this go in a different path. So I'm just going to wait until I get secure. After a few weeks in the office, walking through the window bridge of one of the buildings, I stopped, looked at my badge, and finally believed it. In July, I had officially joined Intel Sales and Marketing Rotational Program, best known as SMRP, a distinguished program designed to shape future Intel leaders at an accelerated pace through rotational experiences in sales and marketing. So here are the key takeaway and call to action from this experience in this example. Whether you are struggling as someone employed, unemployed, or a student, one, I would sincerely pray. Pray and surrender your desire to God's will. Two, choose truth. And three, trust God. What do I mean by these? How are these called to action? Well, one, when you sincerely pray and surrender your desire to God's will, He will guide your path. He will take all the great plans you made for yourself that you think are amazing, as I did for myself, and provide you with better and greater plans He has for you. As in my case, when I surrendered the white piece of paper where I had written my ideal job, God fulfilled all of it on the list and exceeded it in ways I never even imagined, providing me not with an opportunity, providing me with a platform of professional opportunities. Two, call to action is always choose truth. Even when you are scared and a white lie may appear like a safer option or a less complicated path, stick with the truth. In my case, going with the truth helped me to see God's powerful hand opening paths, which I know did not come from my overqualified skills, because that wasn't happening. It will allow you to clearly see His hand at work and provide overflowing blessings because you are becoming a platform where those can happen. So choose truth and see God's hand work in the places that you are not capable of and the ones that you cannot reach. The third one is trust God. God will bring the right people, as He did with me, bring the director to fulfill his commitment. The director had all his team. He did not need to be there. In obedience and responsibility, not being at his best, because that's another thing that he wasn't health-wise at his best at that moment. Yet he traveled from coast to coast from coast to coast to fulfill his commitment at that conference. His presence there was instrumental to a path God had prepared, which changed my life. Trust God. He will bring you everything you need in your path. So those are the key takeaways and call to action. Sincerely pray and surrender your desire to God's will. Choose truth and trust God.